Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to OEMC. I'm Rich Guidice, Executive Director of the Chicago Office of Emergency Management and Communications. National Weather Service issued a winter storm warning in effect today through Tuesday, February 16th at noon. OEMC has been working closely with the National Weather Service since early last week, monitoring conditions around the current weather pattern that include blowing snow, dangerously cold temperatures, and wind chills as low as -16. Wind gusts as high as 25 miles an hour, and new snow accumulation of 6 to 10 or 8 to 12 inches due to lake effect. OEMC has also been sending out emergency text alerts regarding weather conditions on Notify Chicago, Chi Biz, and Chi Lake to keep residents and businesses updated. Residents can sign up for Notify Chicago at notifychicago.org. At 9 a.m. this morning, we experienced whiteout conditions on Lakeshore Drive and took necessary precautions. If you must travel, allow for extra time while driving, have a full tank of gas, keep a flashlight, blanket, snacks, and water in your vehicle in case of an emergency. Also, keep plenty of distance between you and the vehicle in front of you. Earlier this month, we marked the 10th anniversary of the 2011 blizzard. Since then, OEMC has worked continually to evaluate and improve our operations and planning around each extreme weather emergency. After 2011, there were a number of lessons learned that have become routine in the city's emergency response efforts to mitigate severe winter storms and other events, including barrier openings on Lakeshore Drive, operational changes to improve emergency response, the creation of the Winter Weather Workshop held each fall, and improve the communication process. The city has already opened the barriers at Schiller on Lakeshore Drive and staged pre-deploy response equipment at various locations to ensure a quick response time to any emergency on Lakeshore Drive. Further precautions taken include TMAs monitoring conditions in addition to street and sanitation and the Chicago Police Department. OEMC has been coordinating response efforts with the city's public safety infrastructure departments, private partners, and utility agencies to keep residences and businesses safe and informed. We've hosted twice daily conference calls with our citywide partners focused on the coordination of resources throughout the duration of this weather event. These standing conference calls happen 7 days a week regardless of what is happening in our city. City agencies have been working around the clock, clearing snow-covered streets, conducting well-being checks, responding to heat complaints, connecting residents to shelter, and offering access to a network of warming areas and community service centers, senior centers, parks, libraries, and police districts. The City of Chicago's top priority is public safety. We encourage residents to check on and provide any additional assistance to neighbors, family members, pets, and our most vulnerable, especially those who are elderly, have disabilities, or are homeless. Staying connected is key to being safe. If you need a request to a well-being check or for information on available warming centers, shelters, and other city services, you can call 311. Go to 311.chicago.gov or use the 311 mobile app. We'd also like to remind residents and businesses to be good neighbors, to shovel and salt the areas in front of their homes or places of business. Finally, I'd like to thank Mayor Lightfoot and all the city departments, agencies, and organizations who come together to keep Chicago safe, not only during the winter season, but year-round. Now I'd like to introduce Mayor Lori Lightfoot. Mayor.
Thanks, Rich, and thank you all for being here and tuning in. Obviously, we know a thing or two about extreme weather here in Chicago. And at some points during today, it looked like a scene out of Dr. Zhivago. But our city has had a lot of days like this, even this year. And I want everyone to know, as you can see from the folks that are here and the folks that you can't see in the front row from the various city departments, this is an all-hands-on-deck moment, and we are ready to make sure that our city continues to function even in this extreme weather circumstance. In addition to Executive Director Guidice, I also want to thank the other speakers who are going to be joining me here today. Department of Streets and Sanitation Commissioner John Tully, Department of Buildings Commissioner Matt Bode, Department of Family and Support Services Commissioner Lisa Morrison-Butler. We also have with us Dr. Allison from the Department of Public Health. In addition, we have representatives from the CTA, Department of Aviation, Department of Public Health, People's Gas, Chicago Public Schools, and our Chancellor of City Colleges, Thank you all for being here and for the work that you've been doing around the clock to make sure that we are safe and ready. For a lot of us, this is the perfect day to stay inside. Read a book, watch a movie, or for the brave at heart, bundle up the kids and go outside and play in the weather. But it's also for many, today's weather poses serious challenges to being safe and getting around, which is why we're all here today. As we have done over the past few weeks, and we will continue to do throughout this winter season, our city has an array of services to deal with every aspect of cold weather. Today we're going to highlight and reinforce a few of those. I want to begin by addressing the needs of our most vulnerable residents. Whether it's our seniors, our people with disabilities, people experiencing homelessness, or others, we have been, as we have been throughout the pandemic, are here for you now. Extreme weather exacerbates the challenges most of our vulnerable residents face, which is why we sharpen our focus during these times in particular. Let me begin by talking about city services for those in need of a warm place to stay. We have two 24-hour warming centers, one located on at the Garfield Community Service Center at 10 South Kesey, and the other as well as the Dr. Martin Luther King Community Service Center at 4314 South Cottage Grove. We also have warming centers available throughout the day. This includes 58 of our Park District locations, the Chicago Cultural Center, and 4 other Chicago Library regional locations. That's Harold Washington, and then the 3 regional libraries on the south, the west, and the north side. Also, residents in need can also visit local police stations, which are open 24/7 as warming centers. For our residents experiencing homelessness, the Department of Family and Support Services has been coordinating with community-based outreach teams to get these residents the safety and care that they need, and Commissioner Morrison Butler will talk more about that. I now want to briefly address city supports for those who have a home, but where the heat is out or are experiencing colder than acceptable temperatures. As a reminder to both landlords and renters, temperatures inside units are required to be at least 68 degrees during the day and 66 degrees at night. Landlords that do not comply, and we take this very, very seriously here in the city of Chicago, face fines up to $1,000 per day per violation for each day that they do not supply adequate heat. So there can be no excuses. This has been the law for quite some time, and it's our expectation that landlords are going to abide by these requirements. But if you are a renter and your landlord isn't providing needed heat, please contact 311 immediately and file a complaint, and we will be on top of that, and Commissioner Bode will talk in a moment about that. So whether you are a renter or a homeowner, I want to also caution, please do not use your stove or oven as a source of heat. This is when tragedies happen. If you do not have sufficient heat, please call 311 and we will work with you to find a plan and a solution that works. But do not use your stove or your oven as a heating source this winter. We've seen too many lives lost, too much tragedy as a result of that. Also, due to the extreme cold, the Department of Water Management wants to remind residents to keep a trickle of water running in order to prevent frozen pipes. For more tips on how to handle frozen pipes, please visit chicago.gov/water, and you'll have the tips that you need there. Now, let's talk about how we're moving the snow and ice from our city streets. In an effort to keep our streets clear, the Department of Streets and Sanitation has deployed now over 300 snow vehicles, which are plowing the streets and spreading salt as we speak. They are covering 9,400 miles of roads. That's a lot of territory to cover while the snow flies. The main focus will be on arterial streets. So those of you who are on residential streets, just please be patient. We will get to you as soon as we possibly can, but it's critically important that we keep the main streets open for emergency vehicles, for our buses, and other vehicles so we can keep them moving. But I promise you, we will get to the residential streets as quickly as we can. This is a massive operation, and Commissioner Tully of Streets and Sands will describe more in a moment. But meanwhile, we also want to tell drivers that if you don't have to drive, do not drive. Keep the streets clear. Avoid driving when possible. And I want to just give a special shout out, not only to Streets and Sand, but our other infrastructure departments who are part of this work, from CDOT and from Water. We want to make sure that they are able to do their job because they've been at it 24/7 for quite some time now. I know that top of mind also may be a question about schools, and particularly with in-person learning tomorrow. And let me reassure parents that the leadership at CPS is tracking weather developments very closely and will provide an update to parents, the entire school community, and public no later than 5 p.m. today regarding this in-person learning tomorrow. Now, our commissioners will offer more updates and tips, but before they do, let me end on this. And let me pick up a point that Executive Director Guidice made. I'm calling on all Chicagoans to please check in on your neighbors, especially your elderly neighbors, neighbors with disabilities, those of the vulnerable residents in our neighborhoods and in your network who are particularly challenged during these extreme weather emergencies. We have to all be in this together, whether it's shoveling somebody's walkway, throwing down a little bit of salt, or just a quick text or phone call or knock on the door to make sure that our neighbors are doing fine during this circumstance, and to make sure that there's nothing that they need while we're under this emergency. These small acts of kindness go a long way and demonstrate why we are a remarkable city of neighbors and neighborhoods. We will get through this, of course. We always do, but I want to make sure that our most vulnerable populations are taken care of. So please make sure that you step up during this time and be a good neighbor to those in need. Now, I'd like to welcome Commissioner Tully to the podium to provide additional details. Commissioner?
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mayor Lightfoot. I'm John Tully, the Commissioner of the Department of Streets and Sanitation. We've had over 28 inches of snowfall in the last 19 days, and our crews have been working diligently during that time. Streets and Sand currently has a fleet of over 300 plows and spreaders, making sure the main streets are passable for all. And at this time, I'd like to thank the men and women of our department and those that work with us for all the work that they've done over these last 19 days. We ask the residents to be patient with us. I know there's a lot of snow piled up on corners and that. We need to prioritize keeping the main streets clean before we can move to the residential streets. But we will get to those residential streets, and we will get to picking up the residential garbage as soon as the time allows. We will continue to work with our partners here at OEMC to monitor conditions and adjust as needed. We ask that the residents who are blowing or shoveling the snow, that they please try to keep that in the parkway and not on the street. If you need to be on the road, as the mayor said, please travel with caution, adjust your speed, and also adjust your travel time based on these conditions. The Department of Streets and Sanitation social and media accounts will have updates on the deployment on www.chicagoshovels.org that shows our fleet in real time. Thank you. Please stay safe out there. And at this time, I'd like to introduce Building Commissioner Matt Bode.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioner Tully and Executive Director Guidice. I'm Matt Bode, the Building Commissioner. As the Mayor outlined, we enforce the Chicago Heat Ordinance, which requires that temperatures for renters be at least 68 degrees from 8:30 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. and at least 66 degrees from 10:30 p.m. to 8:30 a.m. Landlords face fines up to $1,000 per day per each violation. As the Mayor said, we take this very seriously. There are no excuses. Again, there are no excuses. Landlords must provide adequate heat for their renters. If you're a renter and your landlord is not providing adequate heat or no heat at all, as the Mayor said, please call 311 and we will be out there. Pandemics, holidays, weekends, doesn't stop us. We're out there right now as we speak, doing these inspections. This winter, we've conducted over 5,100 no heat or inadequate heat inspections, and over 500 from last Friday, which was a city holiday, through the weekend, through today, which again is a city holiday. We work with our other partners at DCF, Department of Family and Support Services, and Salvation Army and others to make sure that folks are protected. And if they need help, additional help beyond the heat, that we help them. Just as one example, we went to one building that had no heat and found out that that was chopped into 7 different units, illegal conversion units, which heat aside is very unsafe. And we took immediate action, as the mayor expects, and we worked with our partners at Family Support Services, Salvation Army, to make sure that those folks had a safe home to relocate to. And we will be holding that landlord responsible, not just for not providing adequate heat, but not providing adequate living services to his renters. If you're a landlord, we strongly encourage you to proactively go and check your heating systems. Don't wait for it to break. Take the initiative, do your duty to your renters, go out and check your units and make sure that those systems are working safe. And if not, make sure you're immediately addressing those. And again, we will hold you accountable for that. Another item I wish to address is with the snow accumulating on top of roofs, please do not go on top of a roof. It is not safe. There are professionals that do that for a living. If you go up on your roof, you don't know what you're stepping underneath, you don't know what's underneath that snow, you don't know if you're hitting a soft spot or a slope or a vent or anything. You know, we want you to be safe. Do not go up on a roof. You could fall, slip and fall. You can also damage your roof. Do not take shovels and start shoveling up on roofs. It is not safe. Again, just let nature take its course, and the snow will eventually melt. And just one other thing. Again, if you need help, call us. That's what we're here for. That's our job. That's what we do. We will go out and help you. And if we find, not just for the heat, if we find other things that you need help with, we will help you. We'll work with our partners in the city. We'll work with our other partners in the social services sector, and we will get you that help. Again, we don't take holidays, and we don't take days off. I'd like to thank the mayor for her leadership and everything she's doing, and my fellow colleagues here in the departments. Just briefly help each other, look out for the seniors, look out for your neighbors. I have to thank my neighbor who actually helped shovel my car out so I can get here today. I didn't ask her, but it was one of those small acts of kindness that makes Chicago what it is, and that's why we all love our city. At this time, it's my pleasure to introduce Commissioner Lisa Butler, or Morrison Butler, from the Department of Family and Support Services. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. My name is Lisa Morrison Butler. It's my honor and privilege to lead the team at the Chicago Department of Family and Support Services. As the mayor said, DFSS, along with our other city partners, has been taking some specific measures in response to the extreme cold weather we're having. The mayor mentioned that we have 2 of our 6 community service centers that are open 24/7. That's Garfield Community Service Center at 10 South Kedzie and the King Center at 4314 South Cottage Grove. So far, over the last 4 days, we've averaged about 20 people per hour have taken advantage of those 2 centers being open. As you've heard multiple times, if you need anything, it is just the easiest thing in the world to contact 311, and that is, it's the only thing we ask you to remember, is that if you need help, please call 311. DFSS and 3 of our delegate agency partners have also been doing outreach to homeless encampments. I've got to give a shout out to those partners because unlike some of our infrastructure agencies on the city side, they are actually not staffed to work 24/7. And so when they and the team at DFSS do that, that's the same people that work daytime that are just working overnight. And those folks are Featherfist, Haymarket, and our good friends at Salvation Army. There are dozens of other nonprofits that help us do this work to support our city's most vulnerable, but it's worthwhile to mention those 3 that are helping us this weekend with outreach to encampments. As part of that outreach to encampments, between Friday and this morning, we had engaged 445 individuals living in encampments. offering them shelter if they wanted it. And those that didn't want shelter, we made sure that we had blankets, gloves, hats, socks, et cetera, to offer them. In our community service centers, because of COVID, we are embracing distancing inside the centers, and so people that show up, we are spacing them 6 feet apart and asking them to wear masks while they're inside. Our shelter beds, we do still have beds available in the system. The easiest way to get connected to a shelter bed is to call 311. Chicago is a little bit unique. We manage all of our beds centrally. So when you call 311, we're able to look across our system of shelters and determine the one that is available for you, and then we will transport you to that shelter. In addition to the work that we've been doing to support individuals struggling with homelessness, we also have done some outreach to seniors in partnership with our colleagues at OEMC. We did outgoing calls to seniors to remind them that the bad weather was coming this weekend and urge them to be careful. And we also are still available to do well-being checks. If you live next to a senior or have a senior in your family, please call them and make sure that they are okay and urge them to stay inside and stay safe. And at this point, it's my pleasure to bring up my colleague, Commissioner Allison Whitey of the Chicago Department of Public Health.
Thank you. So on behalf of the Chicago Department of Public Health, the cold is also dangerous. Even a few minutes of exposed skin when temperatures are like this put you at risk for frostbite and worse. So please don't take chances with your health. Check on your neighbors. I also want to let you know that because of the cold weather, tomorrow the City of Chicago's COVID testing operations will not be open. Those do have folks who are in and out of cars and have walk-up. However, all of the City of Chicago vaccination sites remain open and operating as planned. Here in Chicago, we've worked to make sure that all vaccination efforts are indoors this time of year. Thank you.
At this time, we'd be happy to take your questions.
I'll start with the weather-related questions first.
Sure.
This is from Megan Hickey with CBS. She said, with Chicagoland bracing for as much as 12 inches of fresh lake effect snow later today, are you aware of any, I guess, changes in vaccinations? I guess Dr. already answered that question. And do you know if vaccine will be compromised if it's been thawed and people aren't able to get to their appointments tomorrow?
I'll let Dr. Artie address that question, but I don't think there's any issues.
Okay.
That's right, there's no issues. And maybe I'll take 1 second just to reinforce that under no circumstances do we waste vaccine here in the city of Chicago. We have very strong operations in place from the time that we thaw that vaccine. The vaccine, even the ultra cold Pfizer vaccine, you have 5 days to use that vaccine, and we have planning in place to make sure that all of it is used in the time from when we thaw it. Where you hear these conversations about waste, we're usually talking about a vial. A vial of that Pfizer contains 5 doses of vaccine, and we open those vials when we know that there are people available to take it. Every single site around the city has a plan for those last small doses, and under no circumstances do we let weather or anything else cause wastage of vaccines.
This is from Dana Kozlov, also at CBS. At what point will city crews begin using trucks to move and dump snow in areas like Montrose Harbor to help clear streets, and is that being discussed now?
I know that's been a topic of conversation, so I'll let Commissioner Tully address that.
Could you repeat that again?
Sure. At what point will city crews begin using trucks to move and dump snow in areas like Montrose Harbor to help clear streets, and is that being discussed now?
Well, I don't know about Montrose Harbor, but within our snow plan, if we do get that amount of snow, we do have pre-identified areas throughout the city where we can put snow to make sure, and in locations that won't be dangerous for children that'll be playing. They see a snow pile and may climb on it. So we do have pre-identified areas. And if we do get that amount of snow, we're fully prepared to address it.
And Dana has a second question. She says, today is a city holiday. Can you discuss the overtime that will be paid out to get streets plowed? How many people were brought in on overtime today?
For our regular city crews that are out picking up refuse, it's not a holiday today. We do have regular crews out. As far as snow, we currently have over 300 drivers that are, they will be earning overtime, but you know, we've been very fortunate throughout the early part of the year, although the last month has been a little difficult, but yes, they are working on overtime. And we'll continue to until we clear both the main streets and the residential streets.
Thank you. And just a few questions here from the Chicago Tribune. This one's from Kate Douglas. She said she'd like to know how the pandemic has affected this unusually snowy past few weeks, and what ways it may have exacerbated trouble when planning a response. For example, does the city have its full staff of emergency responders working? And in what ways might the pandemic be a blessing in terms of such a harsh winter, like fewer commuters, et cetera?
I don't think any of us who have carried this incredibly heavy burden over the last 11 months would ever say that the pandemic has been a blessing. This has been a tremendous burden from top to bottom on every single resident in the city. Certainly, it's provided opportunities for us to address longstanding disparities in health and reaching out to communities that are most in need, focusing our attention on our most vulnerable residents. But blessing and pandemic are two words that really don't go together.
She also asked about traffic crashes as a result of not only the poor weather and road conditions, but because people tend to be speeding more. How big of a problem is this? Right.
Oh, I think I'll go back to the point that Commissioner Tully made in his opening remarks. It's snowing. The conditions are not clear and clean, so people need to plan for that, leave a much more advanced time than what you ordinarily would to get from one place to another. Over the course of this last year, we've actually seen less cars on the roads, but speeding is a real issue. We've seen an increase in traffic accidents and fatalities over and above during this time period, which is why we put a particular focus on getting people to take their speeds down. But common sense tells you when it's snowing and the conditions on the road are not great, take more time, reduce your speed, and be much more alert. I was just talking to somebody over the weekend who was rear-ended by somebody who literally on an expressway was sitting there using their phone to put an address in their phone while they were driving. So let's not do that. Let's be careful. Let's slow it down, take more time, because the road conditions are not optimal for driving.
This one, also the Tribune, about building collapses.
I'm sorry?
Building collapses.
Yeah.
Leslie Bonilla says some buildings or roof collapses like the one in Englewood Sunday and even the Aragon Ballroom even earlier this month have stopped traffic, interrupted public transit, and presented a risk to passerbys. Are collapses like these due to heavy snows that we've been receiving for the last few weeks? And is the city doing anything to try to prevent these?
I'll let Commissioner Bode address that because this is an issue, obviously, that is in the wheelhouse of the building department. They've been responding to these various conditions, and I think he'll add more insights than I will. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mayor. So we have responded to some roof collapses. They were primarily I think, Bode truss roofs, which are a lot older. Those are about 100 years old in the city. A lot of those buildings are vacant. And, the difference between a vacant building and an occupied building is an occupied building has heat. And the heat goes up, and the heat helps heat the building, heat the roof, and the snow will come down. If you have an unoccupied building that's been vacant, there's no heat going up there, that's where you can get the build up a little bit more. I think even the Riviera has been vacant for a while. But again, don't go up on the roofs. It's not safe to be going up on the roofs. Let nature take its course. The more heat you have inside the building, the easier it's going to be for the snow to come down and melt. But we do work with the fire department on responses when there are roof failures. We take it very seriously, and we will address those issues as they come. But please, again, don't go up on top of the roofs. That's not the solution.
She also asked, do you have any rough estimate of what the city's response cost each time a building collapses like this?
Each one's separate. I think the main response is actually going to be the fire department. But when those buildings aren't safe, and there have been a few, we do take the emergency measures and we do demolish those buildings on an emergency basis. And we do place, the law department will place a lien on the property so we can recoup our costs from the owner.
Thank you. And then this question is about hypothermia deaths, again from the Tribune. Do you have a number for hypothermia deaths so far this season?
Allison, you want to address that?
So we refer to the Cook County Medical Examiner, who of course does the final assessment for any deaths. I believe there have been 9 so far this season.
And do you have a total number of 911 and 311 weather-related calls that are made to OEMC?
I think in order for us to be able to answer that, you got to give us a time period, because 911 calls obviously happens every day. They go up and they go down depending on the circumstances.
That's correct, Mayor. And we'll evaluate this whole weather storm once this event is passed. But at any given day, we can have about 20,000 calls a day to the 911 center and the 311 center. And all those calls that are coming in are getting dispatched out to police department, fire department, and obviously our other city agencies. So on any given day, 20,000 calls. We'll evaluate this whole storm once it's passed.
Okay, and then these are off-topic questions for the mayor. Be good. This is from Fran Spielman with the Chicago Sun-Times. She says, you told the New York Times that Chicago public schools would, quote, never have opened without mayoral control. What does this mean? Do you no longer support an elected school board as you promised during your campaign?
I'm not sure that that's my exact quote, but the bottom line is, I think it was helpful for me to be directly involved in discussions with the Chicago Teachers Union and helped add my steer to the work that had already been ongoing with Chicago Public Schools.
And then this one is from WLS, Michelle Gallardo. She says, on Friday, IDPH announced counties would see reductions in first dose deliveries in the coming weeks to get account for the number of people needing to get their second shots. With the city getting their doses directly from the federal government, is a similar redistribution expected to take place here, and will it become even harder for folks to get their first shot appointments in order to hold back supplies for second doses?
Yeah, let me start, and then I'll invite Dr. Arwady to weigh in. Look, the fact of the matter is that no place in the country has enough vaccine. The Trump administration made a huge amount of promises about what the production activity was going to be, how many doses they were going to have by the end of the year. I think they said 20 million, and they failed on every single thing that they said. We wouldn't be even having this conversation if we had a prior federal administration that had a modicum of a competency, not only around vaccines, which is the topic of today, but if they had any competency in responding to this pandemic. I think that that's been well documented. And the Biden administration, I think, is doing a yeoman's job stepping into what was a chaotic mess and sorting it through. We are in frequent contact with the folks on the Biden team that are responsible for leading the federal effort regarding the pandemic. We talk to them with great regularity. I haven't been shy, nor has any other mayor across or governor for that matter, to say that we need to get more vaccine. They have definitely done, I think, what they could under the circumstances. We've seen a slight increase in the weekly amount that we're getting. They're giving us predictability over a 3-week period, which is a significant improvement because it allows us to do more planning. But the bottom line is we just simply don't have enough first doses. But despite that, I think that we built a very good infrastructure. We are getting doses out the door as quickly as we get it, and we're making sure that there is no wasting of these precious doses, because we know that literally contained in each of those bottles is 5 or 6 life-saving doses. We take that very, very seriously and are doing everything that we can to literally get shots in shoulders because it makes a huge difference. I'll be getting my second dose shot later this week. Allison.
So to put a little bit more context on that, every single week since The vaccine rollout has begun. Chicago Department of Public Health said we are committed to pushing 95% or more of our vaccine out every week. We've met that every single week. We were at 96% this last week. And I'm happy to say we've got 100% of our doses in arms 7 days later, leaving aside the ones that have been left for long-term care. Behind the scenes, not only do we have very careful work around supply chains and keeping things cold, but we have also been planning for second doses. You might have noticed that when I speak about how much vaccine we get, we specifically talk about first doses because that is what you need to be able to begin vaccinating people. As a reminder, there are more than 700,000 people already eligible in phase 1B here in Chicago, people over 65 and those frontline essential workers, not including Cook County residents who may be working in Chicago in those essential frontline jobs, or the healthcare workers in 1A who have now decided to get vaccinated. We've got more than 700,000 people eligible. Last week, we were getting 6,000 first doses per day. This coming week, we anticipate getting 6,700 doses per day. Nowhere near enough, as the mayor said, progress, and we're happy to be able to do some more planning, but we're working very hard behind the scenes to make sure that when we commit to giving somebody a first dose here in Chicago, that second dose will follow.